The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the 3rd chapter. Jesus went home, and the crowds came together again, so that Jesus and the disciples could not even eat. When his family heard it, they went out to restrain him. For people were saying, "He's gone out of his mind." And the scribes who came down from Jerusalem said, "He has Beelzebub, and by the ruler of the demons he casts out demons." And he called them to him, and spoke to them in parables. "How can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house will not be able to stand. And if Satan has risen up against himself and is divided, he cannot stand, but his end has come. But no one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his property without first tying up the strong man. And indeed, the house can be plundered. Truly, I tell you, people will be forgiven for their sins and whatever blasphemies they utter, but whoever blasphemes against the Holy Spirit can never have forgiveness, but is guilty of an eternal sin. For they had said, 'He has an unclean spirit.' Then his mother and his brothers came, and standing outside, they sent to him and called him. The crowd was sitting around him, and they said, 'Your mother and your brothers and sisters are outside asking for you.' And he replied, 'Who are my mother and my brothers?' And looking at those who sat around him, he said, 'Here are my mother and brothers. Whoever does the will of God is my brother and sister and mother.'" It's the gospel of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
God's grace, mercy, and peace be yours this day through Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen. Jerome wanted to be a baker. More specifically, he wanted to be a pastry chef. But Jerome was 6'5" and about 300 pounds, seemingly almost as wide across in the shoulders as he was tall. Jerome had the ability to pick up and move a refrigerator by himself. Pastry chef was not the first thing that people would have seen when they saw Jerome. So it was a little bit of a strange choice, but there was something in him that felt like, this is what I need to do. This is who I am. I'm a pastry chef. And his family was probably the worst. They said, "Oh man, Jerome, come on. You're huge. You should do something different. You have these distinct qualities, these distinct traits. You could be a spokesperson being the size you are. You could make a lot more money as even a mover." But Jerome said, "That's not me. I'm a pastry chef." They looked at him and they just laughed. "Pastry chef? What kind of pastry chef are you?" Something in Jerome needed to become a professional pastry chef. And he couldn't explain it. And being with his family was hard because they really didn't get it. And worse, they couldn't let it go. So eventually Jerome realized he was looking for excuses not to spend so much time with his family. He realized he was avoiding them. They were drifting apart a little bit. And all of their helpful advice was just making him that much more determined to become a professional pastry chef. Our text today begins, Jesus went home. Now, I don't know how you hear that, but going home can be the most amazing thing in the world. If you're far off and you're feeling homesick, that's the one place you want to be, the one place where you feel safe and secure, the one place where you know you are accepted and welcome, the place that you belong. Home in all reality is not always necessarily the easiest place either. We sometimes have some family tensions. And apparently it's not always the easiest place, even for the Messiah. I couldn't believe this when I read this. Jesus went home, and what happens? They're fighting with each other. When you realize what's happening in this text, it's incredible. Family can be an incredible gift. It can also be a bit of a challenge at times. So Jesus, family is tricky because I think you've got history, you've got squabbles and fight. Even in a very communicative, healthy family, it's only natural that the children want to learn to have their own voice. They're going to push against the parents. This is me. I'm going to establish my independence. I'm my own person. Don't tell me what to do. That's natural. That's normal. It's not easy, not comfortable, but it's normal. And then you got the parents saying, "Oh, no, don't go so far away. trying to keep some sense of connection and cohesion to this family. Even the best of families. A little tension there, even in Jesus' home. It's interesting, the translation there. Jesus went home. That could actually be translated, he came to a house which he entered. He came to a house. That sounds pretty generic. That word home is so charged. And it'd probably be easier if we just said, he came to a house. Then we could leave all of that family baggage at the door and hear the story a little bit differently. Problem is, I think that baggage is exactly what this text is getting at. That family tension. Our text ends, who is my family? One might try to argue it's the crowd's fault. It's the crowd. It's the people that showed up at the doorstep. It's their fault. They're the ones making the scene here. Are they? Or is it something else going on? Jesus had just started his ministry. We're only in chapter 3 of Mark. I think it's always important to recognize where in his life are we. So all he's really done so far by chapter 3, he's been born. Then we have a lot of missing years. Then he calls the disciples and begins his public ministry. He calls the disciples. He performs a couple of healings. And that's all it takes, is a couple of healings, and the people start coming out of the woodwork. These people, these crowds, they just keep showing up wherever he goes. And just before our lesson for this morning, we have Jesus saying to the disciples, hey guys, can you get a boat ready so we can maybe go out of the water and escape all these crowds? But these crowds, they keep showing up. They say, the doctors can't fix this. The people, I haven't found any way to heal this situation. Jesus, please, can you help? He says to the disciples, hey, let's go up the mountain. Maybe we can get away from him if we go up the mountain. There they are. The crowds find him on the mountain. So he says, okay, now I got to go home. Maybe if I go home, I can catch a little rest, get a good meal. I mean, Mom's not a bad cook. Mother Mary is a decent cook. I got to get a good meal in here so I can carry on this ministry. So he goes home. What happens? More crowds. They're still there. And what does Jesus do when they show up? He does what Jesus does. He does what he has to do. He's simply himself. And he doesn't go inside to be with his family. He's with the people. It's innate to who he is. He can't help but have compassion for them. He can't help but be out there with them. He can't help but share God's healing with them. That's him. But what does his family see? Oh, there he goes again. Man, Jesus, what's with this? I mean, these crowds. You can't even stop to have a decent meal? You can't even come in to have Mom's Sunday dinner? I can just imagine this, what the comments are. Who do you think you are, Jesus? I mean, come on. Brothers. You ever think, it says his mother and his brothers. You ever think about the fact Jesus had brothers? What were those relationships like? Brothers could be on each other's case. I can imagine the brothers making a comment like, sure, Mom talks about you being this real miracle baby and all, and this crazy birth, but whatever, man. We know you stink at kickball, and you're a total dweeb with the girls. Get over yourself. Come on in and have dinner. That's brothers, right? The impression here is that Jesus had a normal family, maybe a little dysfunctional. They couldn't hear each other. They couldn't recognize what he was doing. They couldn't see where God had led him and what God had called him to do. They probably still saw him as just a kid, just an ordinary guy. And they had expectations of him. They had definitions, and he was doing something a little different from that. And they couldn't support it. Instead, what do? It says they try to go out and stop him. His own family stop or restrain him. Now, it's a little bit unclear. It says that the people were saying stuff. The people, was the family more concerned about their own reputation? Well, that's the family that crazy guy came from, yeah. Were the brothers more concerned about their own reputation? And secretly maybe support Jesus? Behind closed doors say, man, I respect what you're doing, but I'm not sure I'm ready to advocate for you, I hope you understand. Or did they genuinely think, the guy's nuts. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Whatever. The people were saying stuff. And regardless, the bottom line is that the family couldn't find it in themselves to support Jesus. Couldn't support it. So then we shift to the scribes, the religious officials. We have the religious officials show up, and we hear what they have to say. They say, he's possessed. He is channeling Satan. Yeah, he's channeling Satan. That's what he's doing. He's channeling Satan. And Jesus says, what? Channeling. Jesus, in classic Jesus fashion, says, okay, let's go with that for a second. Channeling Satan, as if that could happen. Okay, channeling Satan. So if I am the commander, prince of darkness, and I've got an army, a legion of demons, and if I'm a general slaughtering my own soldiers, that army isn't going to last very long now, is it? I'm going to do in my own. Evil is conquering itself. You should be saying, hooray! Evil is doing itself in. Channeling Satan? What? That's not what's going on here. That's not the question. What's happening is that God's work is happening and you don't understand it. God's healing is taking place and you're not in control. God's voice is being spoken and heard. And you're not in charge. The real question here is whether you can get behind this. Whether you can find it in yourselves to support the work of God or not. Recognize what God may be doing here, whether you understand it or not. The bottom line is healing is happening. The people are getting better. This is the work of God, not Satan. You can't support what I'm doing. You can't seem to recognize that I have been listening to God's voice. And I'm simply doing what God has led me to do. So who's exactly in the wrong here? All this, of course, is being said to the religious officials with his family just a short stone's throw away. And Jesus says, who is my family? Those who believe in me and what God might be doing in my life. Those who can support where God might be leading me. Those who give me the benefit of the doubt and encouragement and acceptance. Those who cheer me on to be the person God has inspired me to be. These are my family. So this week, the homework is to be supportive to the people around you. We all do it. We say, you're going to do what now? Why in the world would you try that? That seems to be ridiculous. Isn't it easier to be an armchair quarterback and have all the answers? And poke out all the problems, point out all the holes, all the pitfalls? It's never going to work. Sorry, never going to happen for you. Isn't that easier than simply saying, wow, that's amazing. That's bold. That's courageous. Trying something new. Going a new direction. Good for you. The only question we should be asking, is this where God wants you? Is this where God is leading you? Is this going to bring you a sense of fulfillment? Lasting peace? That's the question. And if yes, way to go. You do it. Ours is to be supportive. Who are my family? Those who believe in me and where God might be calling me. These are my family. We're all in this together. So let's work together rather than against one another and be the family, the loving, supportive family that God created us to be.